because I get so tired of women just saying they're just moms. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You are courageous women raising the next generation. So let's take out that word just. So a lot of my work has been about mindset and empowering women specifically. So I'm thrilled to be here with Dress for Success. As Lorraine said, we'll have different topics each month. I will bring in a couple of different guest speakers. I'll be running a lot of the workshops also, but we'll start to really have hopefully a community. And with that being said, anything that we share here is confidential and there's no judgment. It's just an opportunity for us to grow and share and learn some new, really, I try to make it really easy to implement, not like pie in the sky or easy, but just down to earth. How can we stop being our own worst critic, right? That's the topic today. Stop being our own worst critic and start to love ourselves more, and give you some practical exercises to do that. So as I go through, if you have any questions, just let me know. I can't see everybody, but I'm going to share my screen because I think it's helpful for you guys to see the words as we go. I think you'll still be able to see me somewhere. I'm not as animated as I normally am. I have my dominant arm, my right arm is in a sling. I just had shoulder surgery. So normally I might be a little bit more animated, but I have to cut back on that for the next month or so. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And as I said, as we go through, if you have something you want to ask, just shout out and let me know. Okay. Does that sound good? All right. Excellent. I can see Priscilla and I can see Caroline. So, so you guys are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to be
I can
watching you to
monitor
make.
the chat for you if you like, Amy. I can monitor the chat in case people write questions. I'll monitor for you.
Actually, Lorraine, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with, let's see, I'm going to just put this over here. Okay. Whoop. We've been doing something. Okay. Why is that not? Sorry, ladies. Huh. I thought that, oh, I had this all set up. See, now this is a good example because I have to make sure that I'm listening to what I'm going to introduce you guys to, which is your voice of wisdom. And I can't be my own worst critic right now because I swear I went through this and I'm not sure what happened to my slides. Dress for Success. There we go. Okay. Huh. Now, Lorraine, I just want to ask you a quick question because I was all set
Yeah, I know
to.
this. Are you using a Mac by any chance?
Yeah, I am using a Mac, but I had it on view and I was just going to say play slideshow.
Yep, that happened to me with the
Yeah.
Mac. There we go.
And yeah, but see, then when I say play slideshow, when I was doing this before, I could go to the next slide. Huh.
I'm telling you, I don't know why, but this happened to me when I was sharing my screen one time, and it only happens with the Mac. I have no idea why.
Play slideshow in window. Okay.
You want to try that to see if that works?
I can. I'm a little nervous about doing that, but I'm going to.
Okay. Oh.
Okay.
Do you want to share with me and I maybe and then maybe I'll share my screen and you speak?
I could do that. I'm sorry, ladies. This is actually a really good way for me to introduce this because now I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what voice am I going to listen to? Am I going to blame myself and shame myself and embarrass myself? Or am I going to say things happen, learn from this experience? I guess maybe Lorraine, we should have done a dress rehearsal with just us.
But let me tell you, I've done it before with a regular computer
Yeah.
No, it's Loraa. And it was working fine. And then I go ahead and I used my Mac one time, and the same thing happened to me. I have no idea why. And I had it all set up
Really?
as well.
Really?
Yep.
Oh,
Make sure you stop sharing your screen so that I'll be able to share
I'm
mine.
not sure if I'm gonna, you know what I could do, guys? It'll take me a second, but I could probably just go and ask one of my daughters. It just won't let me go to the next slide. That's so odd. Does anybody have any suggestions?
Quickly stop sharing your screen, Amy, really quick, so that I can so that I be able to do it for you.
Okay.
Okay.
What I what I can do while you're doing that, Lorraine, is I can just start by talking through the slides because I know that material and I
Yes,
want
no problem.
keep
But
it.
I didn't get it yet.
You didn't get it yet?
No. There it is. Okay, I got it. No worries. You can
Okay.
start talking. Don't worry. I'll get
Okay. Great. Thanks, Lorraine. I
no
appreciate your help.
problem.
Okay. So, ladies, we're going to start talking today about how to stop listening or how to love yourself, but how to stop being our own worst critic. And the best place to start for that is actually twofold, with a sense of awareness that we actually have two voices in our head, right? And a sense of understanding that we get to choose which voice we listen to. So the two voices in our head are our voice of judgment and our voice of wisdom. And I'm going to take you back to a time, let's say when you were, oh, there we go. Awesome. So I'm on the fourth slide, Lorraine. You can go, you can just show, I don't know if you can go to the third slide. I don't know. Can you go to the third slide? Yeah. So this is where I'm saying, so it's up to us to decide which voice we want to listen to. So it starts with a sense of awareness that there are even these voices. And we can always picture like in those silly movies, right? That little devil and angel, right? But we have to remember with the world being so loud and us always being on the move, we have to remind ourselves that we have the ability to choose which voice we listen to. So I'm going to bring you back to a time, and the next slide shows when we're all about 4 to 6 years old. Okay. Everybody remember that? A kindergartner, hopefully, that's a time in our life when we're a little bit more carefree and we're playful and we're not really concerned about our self image or what people think of us. So let's say a little girl walks into the kindergarten class and she's wearing purple polka dotted pants and she's singing and she's doing her art project, right? Well, it could be in one moment from a well meaning teacher who says, hey, Amy or Lorraine or Carolyn, whoever the little girl may be, hey, we don't want to hear you sing. Stop singing right now. Okay. Just stop. Okay. Or it could be a classmate who says to this little girl, oh my gosh, purple polka dotted pants. That's for babies. Like, oh my gosh, you look so silly, right? And within that instant, what is born? Our voice of judgment. Can anybody relate to that? When you're younger and you just all of a sudden they often say there's a story that all of us can go back to between the ages of 4 and 6 when something hits us and all of a sudden our voice of judgment is born. And you can go to the next slide, Lorraine. It's just kind of a silly one that shows, we also call this our inner critic or our gremlin, right? And it's kind of like that little monster inside. And so you can go to the next slide. Thanks, hon. And so what ends up happening is now that this voice of judgment is born, this little girl, the next time she goes to wear those same polka dotted purple leggings, right? Those pants. Now all of a sudden she hears this little voice and says, oh, you know what? You know what, Priscilla? I don't want you to have anybody make fun of you. So don't wear those, right? And this voice of judgment disguises itself as our best friend. The voice of judgment doesn't want us to look like a fool, right? So it may also say, oh, you know what, Lorraine, you wanted to go for that job interview. You don't really have the qualifications. No, let's skip it, right? So that voice of judgment starts to um, grow louder in all of us, right? And what does it do? It restricts us from growing in a positive way because it stirs up those negative emotions. Can anybody relate to that? When you hear something goes in your voice, oh, that job looks really interesting. I want to apply for it. And then in your head you think, oh, maybe I'm too old, or I don't know if I have the right qualifications, or I didn't get the last job, right? So the voice of judgment is in all of us, and it stirs up negative emotion and it keeps us stuck. It doesn't allow us to grow and become better in any regard, right? It's based on fear. So as you can see from the next slide, does anybody have any questions about that voice of judgment? Okay, so what we're going to do now that we're all aware of this voice in our head is we're going to do a really simple exercise that I think it's so much fun to see women connect the dots when we do this. Is you're going to take out a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, whatever. It could be a little sticky note piece of paper, whatever. Doesn't have to be a huge drawing. And you're going to draw quickly in 5 minutes your gremlin, your inner critic. Okay. Now, don't let the irony of this exercise is don't let your gremlin say, oh, you're a really crappy artist. You can't draw me. What do you think? Right. So instead, sketch it out really quick. The first thing that comes to your mind. It's not like this graded art project. Nothing. This is for your own your own sense of understanding, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to name that gremlin. You're not going to use your own name for him or her. You're going to name it something else, whatever name, just boop. And you're going to write out quickly 3 comments it often makes to rile you up. What are the first 3 comments that when something starts to, feel off, that inner critic says to you? Okay. Does everybody understand that exercise? Okay, so I'm going to set the timer for a few minutes. Again, we're just going to be quiet. I want you to sketch it out, really kind of the first things that come to your mind. Okay? All right, so go for it, ladies. If you'd like, when you're done, you can just write into the chat that you're done. And if everybody's done within a few minutes, then we can just move on. If not, we can take the full few minutes. Okay? Carolyn, you good?
a couple of more minutes, Amy. It looks like 2 people are done.
Perfect. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, Lorraine.
And we had I don't know if you want to quickly say the exercise really fast for Ellen. Ellen came in a little late because I sent her the wrong link by mistake.
Sure, sure. So Ellen, what we're doing right
have it.
now.
Thank you, Amy. I came in just as you were starting to explain it, so I'm okay. Thank you.
Oh, good,
Oh,
good.
good. Okay, great. Perfect. And did you hear what the voice of judgment is? Maybe Lorraine, you want to put that slide, one slide back. Yeah. This is what the voice of judgment tells us, right? It stirs up that negativity in us, makes us feel like emotionally we go down that rabbit hole. We're going to learn how to avoid that. So Peggy's done also. Okay. Priscilla's done. Okay. Okay. So Susan's done. Okay, great. All right. Everybody feel like we're ready to go on it. And again, you can finish this, you know, at the end of the Ellen's done, Simone's done. Okay, great. All right, well, let's get started. So, Lorraine, if you would do me a favor and, yep, okay. So, ready for better or for worse, ladies? I'm showing the gremlin that I wrote when I first did this exercise years ago and became a trained coach for this transformational course. And that's my crazy gremlin. I am not an artist, but that's my gremlin, right? Hee, sucker, right? Like, seriously, you want to what? Right? My gremlin goes at me. You can never get it done. You're too old for that, right? So those are some things that my gremlin says. I don't know if anybody would like to share, kind of put their gremlin up or say a couple words or phrases that your gremlin says to rile you up. If you want to unmute yourselves and share a little bit, again, everything's confidential, but it's kind of fun. Sometimes I've seen so many different drawings of gremlins over the years. Some are, they're just like, often they seem to be big blobs, right? Kind of like a big heavy blob that throws over us. Anybody else want to, Carolyn, you want to share a phrase that your gremlin says?
Yeah, I drew like a smiley face, but with like a frown in the mouth. Because
Okay.
it's funny. When I was younger, I was always told I talked too much, like, so I stopped talking. So when you show that other first slide, I don't remember the age, but I just remembered I didn't talk like a lot after that. I don't know if I was in school, but I just remember being like, you talk too much. So I stopped talking. And then fast forward to today, I just still feel like um, I'm not taking seriously, or if I do give people ideas, they don't want to acknowledge that it was a good idea, and then another person will tell them the same thing that I said, basically. So it's kind of like, I'm like, all right, so why do you keep asking me for advice if you're not going to take it? But then eventually they call me back like 2 months later saying, what did you tell me again? So it's always been that issue for me.
Interesting.
So
And did you give your gremlin a name other than your own? Did you name your gremlin?
no, you know what? I couldn't actually think of a name. That was the thing. I drew a face, but I couldn't think of a name. So I don't know. That was the tough part for me. I really hadn't come up with a name.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
make sure you do think of, even if it's how you feel, like doubtful, like one of the dwarfs, right? Or something like
Okay.
that, grumpy.
Got
Name it, because the key here, ladies, is that voice of judgment, our gremlin, is not naturally who we are. It's not a voice that we are born with. So it comes from outside of us,
Mhm.
and the seed is planted in our head, and then we internalize it and we give it power. So we want to, with this very simple exercise, understand that we're taking that voice of judgment outside of us and we're naming it. And that way, when we put it out there, we can literally, kind of say, hey, talk to the hand, right? I see who you are. He, you're coming at me. I'm not going to let you do that to me. And you can kind of call it out. Does that make sense? It sounds kind of funny, but it has worked over the years. And I see some women today, and they have such funny stories about how they're like, yep, my voice has no power over me now, and it's awesome. It's awesome. So, and it takes practice. So this is the first step. First step is awareness and understanding we have a choice about which voice we listen to. Okay. Does anybody else want to share?
I'll share.
Okay. Who's that?
This is Simone.
Okay, great. Simone, go for it.
Yeah, I put it I think it was really interesting when you were talking about being 6 years old and being kindergarten. I didn't have experience like that. Around 5 years old, my mother abandoned me and my sibling, and then my dad abandoned us when we were 7. I was 7. So for me, I always grew up with this feeling that I was not worth it and I was not good enough. And lots of things over the years triggered me because it was always this feeling that I will be able to do what I want to do things, and I want to go to school. I want to just be a human being the way everybody else is. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what that means. So I grew up like thinking that everybody else had better than I did based in what I lived. And later on now I'm finding out that, we all have these voices that tells us something. Like for me, I was not worth it and I was really not good enough and I was not going to measure to anything.
Right. Well, yeah. Thanks, Simone, for sharing. And that's a huge one that comes up for people. In fact, my story is a simple one. Thankfully, I did have a loving family, but I never felt like I would be good enough, right? I never felt like I'd be good enough because I felt like I had to be perfect, right? So, and then that's how we start to see the world, right? And so that voice in you, Simone, will start to say, you know what? Don't apply to that school because you're not good enough, or don't go for that job because you're not good enough. And so kudos to you for recognizing that. And it sounds like you've been able to say, I want to do that. I am capable of that. And so you've started to take some of those bricks down that gremlin has put up around you and say, yeah, I am worth it. I can do that. Or like Carolyn was kind enough to share, you know what? I do have a voice. I do have good ideas that I want to share. Right. So we start to, that's what we can do is hang that gremlin up. Now, that's the challenge. Take your gremlin. If you want to keep working on it, go for it. If not, if you're done, I mean, I did mine in a matter of minutes years ago, and I hung it up for a little while on my bathroom mirror in the morning and kind of came out and said, oh yeah, I remember you. Yep. Okay. I'm going to be on the lookout for you today. And I'm going to make sure I'm aware that you're out there, and I'm going to choose the other choice because we do have a better choice, and that's our voice of wisdom. So you can hang that gremlin somewhere where you will see it on a daily basis, and it will remind you that that voice of judgment is outside of you. At some point, if you want, later, rip it up, throw it out, throw it in the fireplace, right? If you feel like it. Because the idea and what we're learning today is we have a better choice. So the next slide will show that what our next choice is our voice, otherwise known as the VOW. And our voice of wisdom is actually born within us. And if you look at the next slide, you can, I don't know if somebody wants to mute there. Okay, Lorraine, if you want to go to the next slide, it talks a little bit more about how our voice of wisdom works. Okay. And when we can recognize And when we can recognize that the voice of wisdom is looking for our attention, and how we can learn to tap into it, how we can learn to recognize the voice of wisdom based on these characteristics. Okay. Our voice of wisdom, the VOW, will make sure that it's offering, it's actually, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So the voice of wisdom wants to make sure that it's offering us clear solutions. So the voice of judgment will bring us down that emotional rabbit hole. It'll keep us stuck. It'll restrict our positive growth. Whereas the voice of wisdom is the better choice. Why? Because it's that calm, cool, straightforward voice. It's not going to be, oh, putting you up on a pedestal, but it's going to be straightforward and say, hey, you want to go for that interview? Then you know what you need to do? You need to sign up for it. You need to talk to Dress for Success about mock interviews. You need to get your resume in shape, and it'll offer you actual practical solutions. Okay. Now, the voice of wisdom will also be curious in a positive way. So you'll say, you know, yeah, I want to go for that job, but I didn't get the last job. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a loser. What voice, right? Voice of judgment. Nope. Think, yeah, you know what? I didn't get the job last time. What could I do better? What can I learn from that past experience, right? Ask yourself some helpful questions. Can I go to Dress for Success and revamp my resume? Can I learn more about that company? What can I do? And be compassionate with yourself. So the voice of wisdom is really based on two key characteristics: curiosity. So you're going to ask yourself some really helpful questions, and compassion. And let's face it, ladies, a lot of times we have compassion for other people, right? And release compassionate with ourselves. So we need to be empathetic and say, hey, yeah, I didn't get the other job last time. I can pick myself up again and I can do it again. It happens, right? It's a numbers game. I need to keep putting myself out there and learn as I go. Okay. Just so you know, the voice of wisdom also can be called your gut instinct, right? Your higher self, your intuition, or also if some of us are mothers, when it comes to our kids, it's like that mother's instinct. We know that, boy, I like all of her friends, but that one I'm concerned about. Something there is, you know what I mean? You get that mother's instinct, or she's doing well in her classes, but all of a sudden now she's not. What's going on? It's that mother's instinct. So that can also be called our voice of wisdom. Is that clear for everybody? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. All right, so the next slide shows the difference between the two. And Lorraine, they'll have access to these slides, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So it shows the difference between the two, and it's a really stark difference once we recognize that there's two voices. Okay? Next slide shows, thanks for helping me, Lorraine. The next slide recommends that we view these voices on a daily basis as the game's on, right? So the easiest game to visualize is a tennis match, right? Because it's going to go back and forth, especially when we start out recognizing that we have these two voices. Awareness is the first step. Tuning into which one we want to listen to is the next step, and then practicing on a daily basis. Some days are going to be harder than others. Some days you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like, yes, give me a tiara and a cape and I can solve all the world's problems, right? Other days you might feel like, I want to go back into bed. But it's up to us to recognize that there is a game constantly going on in our mind. The only thing we have control over is our mindset. And so now clearly we can see the voice of judgment's on one side, the voice of wisdom's on the other, and we're serving that ball back and forth. It's up to us as to who we want to win, right? So we hold that power. Nobody else does. Somebody else might make a comment, right? A well-intended parent, sibling, a boss, a friend. That might, come at us and kind of resonate more with our voice of judgment and kind of start to get it riled up. But as we become more attuned to that voice of wisdom, that voice of wisdom grows stronger. And what I did here is I just kind of drew out a sunshine and wrote some things that I say to myself sometimes to get myself back in action, like say, okay, this is my choice. I'm choosing to talk, listen to the voice of wisdom. I'm learning every time I do something. Let's keep moving forward. Okay. So the next slide shows, who do we want to win? Our voice of wisdom, right? And whose choice is that? It's your choice. We have the power individually every day, every minute, every hour to decide who wins that match in our mind. Okay. The next slide shows the benefits to why people say, well, yeah, that voice of wisdom is great, but what good is it going to do me? Well, when we start to tune in to our voice of wisdom, well, then all of a sudden we say, hey, I didn't get that last job. Maybe I need to improve my interview skills. Maybe I need to try a different job industry. So instead of beating yourself up and saying, it's my fault and I'm never good enough, or I don't have anything to share, or I'm just going to stop talking, right? Things like that. I'm too old for this, or, that was one of my things for a while. Instead, you're going to view past opportunities or mistakes as opportunities. Okay. And you're going to look to find the lesson in those and find inspiration within yourself instead of finding it that external approval, right? So, having someone tell me, hey, Amy, you are good enough. Or, hey, Caroline, you do have a lot to say and a lot to offer this world, right? Or Simone, you are worth it, right? So our voice of wisdom will remind us that that inspiration comes from within. We need to stop looking for that external approval and we need to listen to our own voice of wisdom. Why? Because when we do, we empower ourselves to grow and even leap into the unknown sometimes. Take that next step of applying for a nursing program or applying to that teacher's job or applying to the next step, right? So that's what the voice of wisdom does. It continues to encourage us to move forward. The next slide, thanks, Marami, is an example of that. So the next slide shows us sleeping, right? And there's positive effects to when we listen to our voice of wisdom. And what are they? We can leap forward confidently. Our voice of wisdom encourages us to take that next positive step, to share our gifts and talents with the world around us. And then also, I've worked with mothers, so many mothers over the years. And for any of us who are mothers, another ripple effect is when we're strong examples of tuning into our voice of wisdom, we teach our kids to do the same thing. So we role model that behavior. We can even explain it to them when they're old enough. And then they're also going to start to learn to listen to their voice of wisdom, right? Which is awesome. I love how all of this, it has such positive ripple effects. Okay, next slide. This is the next exercise. And it's something that you're going to do going forward. So I don't know if everybody has a sticky note. Or if not, just a piece of paper with a little bit of tape on it is fine. But you're going to write down on that sticky note or that piece of paper, I choose to listen to my voice of wisdom. And you're going to put, I always recommend, and I did myself again years ago, I recommend you put it on your refrigerator, you put it on your bathroom mirror, right? Maybe on one side of your bathroom mirror, you have a gremlin, and the other side, you have, I choose to listen to my VOW. You put it on the car steering wheel. You can put it in, on the TV or on the TV control every time you go to get it, or on your phone. Some people use it on their phone as the backdrop, right? You put it around your house. And if your family sees it, it's a good teaching moment. You can share with them if you want. Otherwise, you can simply say, you know what? It's an exercise I'm learning, and I'd love to share it with you after I practice it for a while, right? But it's a simple reminder on a daily basis in your home. Maybe you put it on, not many of us are really going to work these days. Maybe you put it on your computer, right? We all are using our computer right now. You put it here, you open your computer, you see it. It's a reminder that you're going to choose your voice of wisdom. It's your choice. You have the power. Does that make sense? And it sounds like, I don't really need that. It's easy. I will tell you, ladies, the women who put the notes around, they remember it, they become more aware of it, they tune into it more, and it becomes more regular. And that when we tune into our voice of wisdom more regular, on a regular basis, we sit up a little straighter and we're able to say, I'm going to go for that job opportunity. I'm going to reach out and ask Lorraine, hey, how can I get a new suit? I need some new work clothes, right? I'm going to take a stance for myself because I'm worth it. Make sense? I wish I could see everybody. Okay. So then in the next slide, is simply a summary. And that's what we talked about today. And so I want to take any questions, or if people want to share their gremlins with us or what their gremlins say, please feel free to do that now. But the summary is what we've learned today is to recognize, first of all, to become aware of the fact that there's two voices in our head, right? The voice of judgment we put in there, the world helped us kind of put that in there. We gave birth to it. The voice of wisdom we were born with, right? So the voice of judgment is outside of us. We need to recognize that. The voice of wisdom, we need to learn how to embrace that more, because this world wants us to kind of keep beating ourselves up. It just does. I don't know why. We all need to change that. And then what are the benefits of listening to your VOW? We spoke about that. We learn from our mistakes, right? It helps us to find inspiration from within, and it helps us to keep moving forward in a positive direction. And then the exercise you're going to take with you as we go through, and next month when we check in together, we can start by saying, how's it going with the I choose my voice of wisdom, right? It's that sticky note that you're going to place around your house. And you might, don't let your voice of judgment go, oh, that's stupid. That's a stupid exercise, right? Because your voice of judgment, now that your voice of judgment knows, you're aware it exists, I will tell you, I have had women who say it rears its head even more, because now it's like, oh my God, she knows I'm here. I better make sure, like, I'm not going to go anywhere. I do not want to die out. Like, you have worked really hard to put me in place. I have worked really hard to stay here. I'm going to work really hard to make sure you don't get rid of me. So it's up to us to muscle it out and say, yeah, nope, this is a helpful exercise. It's simple, but it's basic and it works. All right. So does that make sense, ladies? Can everybody relate to that feeling of the voice of judgment and how we want and why we want to empower our voice of wisdom? I'd love to hear from you. Questions, thoughts?
Amy, this is Ellen.
Yeah. Hi, Ellen.
Hi. What if your voice of judgment is coming from a particular person? Do you have any specific advice for,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Excellent question. So your voice of judgment can come from someone else, right? We've all had that. Spouses, parents, siblings. But Ellen, we're allowing that person to permeate and cause us to bury our voice of wisdom. So if when you have that voice of judgment coming from someone else, well, there's a couple things. One, you can name it, that person's name. you can recognize that you're allowing that to happen, right? Like we can say, hey, you know what? I don't need that. Um, and let me tell you also, Ellen, when we start to empower our voice of wisdom more, there are positive ripple effects in a lot of ways. But there are ripple effects sometimes that other people don't want to see. So, you know, for example, I had some friends who I realized really didn't want the best for me, right? And so as I became stronger in my own right and chose to not give them my power, I started to pull away from them. And I'm not friends with them anymore. And let me tell you, it was really hard because they didn't like that. Now, we can't always, friends, it's not easy, but we can change, right? Family members, it's trickier, right? What we can change with family members is our response. And so we have the power within ourselves to respond differently to them. So that's when we can call on our voice of wisdom and practice using it and say, how come I let this person get under my skin, right? For example, my mom, I love her. She is an angel. But for a long time, she said things that I felt deflated me, right? So I would have to say, you know what? That's that's what she's saying. That's her point of view, but that's not how I'm going to take it anymore. I'm going to say, okay, that's how she wants to live. I want to start to surround myself with people, this type of group, your other good friends, family members who are positive, and say, this is who I want to spend time with. Become really aware of who you're spending time with, what you're reading, what you're watching on TV. All of that impacts us and our mindset. So really choose carefully. Does that help, Ellen? I know I mean that can be an hour-long conversation in and of itself, but does that make sense?
Yes.
Does it help?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
It does? Okay, okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts? Does anybody else want to share what their voice of judgment was saying to them? You know, what gets you riled up? What I have found is when people share what their voice of judgment says, there's a lot of overlap, a lot of overlap. And all of a sudden it makes all of us go, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who feels that I'm not worth it. I'm not the only one who feels that nobody wants to listen to me. Other people feel that way. Okay. And then we start to feel like this sense of shared camaraderie and a sense of saying, okay, well, you know, if you can do that, I can do that. And let's, you know, and again, look for interaction that's going to positively impact you. Other thoughts, questions? I know we have about, 10 minutes left or so. So again, these tools come from years of implementing them with different women. They come